Hello students, Developer is coming up with a book on history optional PYQs. But this book is something different than what you get otherwise. उसके बारे में मुझे कुछ बात करनी है. Lots of books are there which cover the PYQs from 1979 till the latest year. And every year you get the updates. But उसपे ना मुझे एक मेजर दिक्कत हमेशा महसूस होती थी. Lots of teachers say, I also say, lots of toppers also say that PYQs analyze करो. PYQs analyze करो. भाई कैसे करें? How to exactly analyze PYQs and how to use them for our preparation? इसके बारे में there is not enough clarity with respect to history optional, and that is the reason. This book is about not only the collection of PYQs but about categorization of PYQs. It offers you better categorization. I want to explain in next few minutes how it helps and show you some very interesting patterns that emerge out of such categorization. How is this PDF going to help you? Pehli baat to, it will make it very easy to analyze the trend of the PYQs, the way it is categorized. Secondly, and more importantly, it provides a direct connection between PYQs, your classroom studies, your handouts and notes, and the exam. इनको एक साथ जोड़ने के लिए seamlessly this categorization is very helpful. And तीसरी बात is that it also brings out many topics which you might not have otherwise noticed. There are some parts of syllabus जिसमें आज तक एक बार भी सवाल नहीं पूछा 30 साल. And there are some other parts which are not mentioned explicitly in UPSC CSE syllabus, but if you analyze PYQs, वो themes भर के आती है. तो what are those themes on which we are supposed to prepare? जैसे कि I'll give you an example, the role of ideology in world history. You might not have noticed it, but जब PYQ analyze करोगे, तो you know कि भाई this is a major theme we have to prepare properly. So this is the book. Now this book is, as I said, categorized based on my years of experience of teaching history, and therefore it is not strictly in accordance with the UPSC syllabus. हमने उसको थोड़ा सा तोड़ मरोड़ दिया है, थोड़ा सा उसको अलग किस्म से अरेंज किया है. So it is a rearrangement of UPSC syllabus which is mostly useful for your preparation. Question कोई भी missing नहीं है. All the questions are there, but they are categorized in a little bit different manner, so as to make your preparation very fluid, very intuitive, and very useful for the actual examination. Let me walk you through some of the interesting aspects of this PYQ analysis. Just for the sake of it, जितना आप analysis करोगे ना, उतना you will realize कि इसमें there are lots of interesting things. जब मैं किताब बना भी रहा था, I was myself shocked to see some of them. Let me take you to the chapter on Mahajanpad era. In Mahajanpad era, you will see that we have lots of questions on Buddhism and Jainism. But do you know, जिस तरह हम Buddhism, Jainism पढ़ते हैं in prelims or for general studies, it is vastly different from the way we study it for optional. Look at the PYQs. There are 3 questions which connect Buddhism with Upanishads, and then 2 questions about spread and decline. That's all. बाकी 2 क्वेश्चन जो है वो है उनका करंट एरा में रिलेवेंस एंड इंपॉर्टेंस. तो जो फिलोसॉफिकल डिटेल्स है या लॉट्स ऑफ फैक्चुअल थिंग्स अबाउट बुक्स एंड थिंकर्स एंड स्प्लिट्स एंड संघास एटसेट्रा, वी डू नॉट नीड दैट. जस्ट बेसिक फैक्ट्स, बट एनालिसिस, कॉन्सेप्चुअल एनालिसिस, इससे आपका काम हो जाएगा. आपके नोट्स भी जो होंगे वेरी सक्सिंग नोट्स. इफ only 1 page note you have properly prepared based on the PYQs for Buddhism, Jainism, आपका chapter हो गया for optional preparation. Let me bring you to other interesting theme that is very apparent in such kind of categorization. You go to the post-Mauryan era. In the post-Mauryan era, which we call as supposedly the Dark Age, we know there is regional fragmentation. We have Kharavela and Shunga and Satvahana and Kanavo and Indo-Greek and whatnot. But if you look at the PYQs, the questions are very minimally from the political aspect. एक aspect है वो है Kushan cosmopolitanism. उसमें 4 सवाल है, 5 सवाल है. It is very important, we should prepare. But apart from that, UPSC is not much interested in the political aspect of post-Mauryan era. Rather, it is much more interested in religious and cultural aspects. Look at the questions and amount of questions that they have asked from the religion and culture of post-Mauryan. Overall development, development of art and its connection, polity and trade, Shunga Satvana art, different sculptural styles, language, literature. So number of questions that are coming from the socio-cultural, religious cultural aspects are equal to or more than number of questions from political aspects. तो जब हम पढ़ते हैं पोस्ट मॉडर्न, आपके नोट्स देखो कितने. If you have 20-30 pages notes for a post modern era, 50% of them should cover only culture. At least for this, only then your preparation is attuned to the UPSC requirement. Let me bring you third interesting fact. Look at the Gupta era. Gupta era is, I think, one of the most evenly balanced part of the syllabus, in which sources, political, administration, economy, society, religion, culture, all of it is asked in very detail over the years. When you prepare Gupta age, you cannot afford to miss any single dimension. सब जगह से सवाल पूछे हुए हैं. You can see it very clearly. Sources, economy, society, religion, Puranic religion, cultural features, etc. It was one of the most balanced aspect. Now there is one more thing जो कि ना सिलेबस में ओपनली मेंशन नहीं है क्लियरली, दैट इज द थीमेटिक एस्पेक्ट. सो इफ यू गो टू दिस डॉक्यूमेंट इन नेक्स्ट चैप्टर आफ्टर द पोस्ट गुप्ता एरा, आई हैव अरेंज्ड दोस क्वेश्चंस व्हिच आर कंप्लीटली थीमेटिक based on entire early Indian history or ancient Indian history. The themes related to economy, land, trade and urbanization, themes related to social condition of women हो या वर्णा सिस्टम हो, themes related to education, science and technology, and then long-term trends in art and culture and India's cultural impact outside India. So ये सारे themes are not specific to any specific age like Maurya or Gupta. You should be having a large term evolutionary perspective in your mind while writing these answers, again in 150, 200, 250 words. It takes a different type of preparation. You should have clarity of change and continuity, which is the bedrock of history. History is not the study of past. History is study of change in the past. तो change को trace करने के लिए, and these questions get repeated. If you see, the new question that comes is nothing but some version of the earlier question. तो आपको ancient को हर साल 2 सवाल आएंगे, इसमें से 1 या 2 सवाल, और हम घबरा जाते कैसे करें. भाई प्रिपेयर करो, PYQs thematically arranged है. So these are some surprising patterns which come out of the study of ancient India. Let me walk you through again some such similar surprises when you look at the medieval India. I have brought out early medieval separately. Usme bhi, if you see very clearly, we have lots of questions on the feudalism debate of Indian feudalism, wo tha ki nahi tha. In our paper, sometimes the question appears in section 1 of paper 2, and sometimes it appears in section 2 of paper 1, not paper 2, sorry. But what I have done is, without going into section 1 or section 2, मैंने उसका अलग से section बनाया है, early medieval India from 750 onwards आप जाते हो till 1200, और वो सारे क्वेश्चन यहाँ पे इकट्ठा कंपाइल किए हैं ताकि you have clarity of what to prepare. In that, if you look at Chola Empire, the imperial Cholas, we have a typical question on local self-governments. We study the features, the characteristics, democratic कितना था, qualification, non-qualification, disqualification, etc. हम पढ़ते हैं. But look at the PYQs. Direct questions on Chola state or rather local self-government are 3. तो कभी-कभी simple वाले पूछते हैं. But if you look at other questions, they are quite analytical in nature, and not only in the context of how democratic they were. वो तो 2 ही सवाल पूछे हैं, but 4 बार including 2015 the सवाल जो पूछा है वो है, what is your analysis of the nature of Chola state based on the characteristic of local self-government. अब हम जब पढ़ते हैं, हम दोनों को अलग-अलग पढ़ते हैं. Local self-government characteristics, democratic, non-democratic एक बार पढ़ लिया, and larger state, centralized, militarized, Hindu resistance या segmentary state, जो कुछ आपको पढ़ना है, culture state हम अलग पढ़ते हैं, और feudal, early state and what not. You have to combine them with the help of the perspective analysis of local self-government. What can you comment on the nature of entire Chola state? That is the question that is persistently asked. So these are the themes which emerge And if your notes are not able to give answer, or if you're not prepared to write good answer to such questions, understand them, go through the questions and improve the notes, improve the content and appear for the exam. Let me walk you through some such themes for medieval India also. Some extremely interesting topics that emerge. Pehli baat to, look at Delhi Sultanate. We have lots of typical questions on Khaljis and Tughlaq especially, wo to hai hi. But apart from that, look at the art and culture of the Sultanate era. In that, what is apparent is that there is equal amount of focus on the language and literature as it is on architecture. Sculpture to hai nahi, painting bhi nahi hai. So what we focus on architecture and language literature. But are the notes ready in your copy about language and literature of Delhi Sultanate specifically? तो इसके बारे में थोड़ा ख्याल रखना पड़ेगा. The latest question was asked in 2021. Identify the different categories of Persian literature which emerged during the Delhi Sultanate. The next aspect is about regional culture. I have specifically prepared a section of regional history here from 14th century to 16th century. Regional history is an emerging trend. It is very important and lots of questions are coming from there. And the cultural developments of the Indo-Islamic format actually appear in the regional era. Here you have Vijayanagar. They are typical questions. You can go through them. You have questions, very few, on Bahmani and Portuguese. Then you go to cultural development. Lots of questions are on Bhakti and Sufi, and they follow certain typical trend. The questions are not the way we study in prelims about the characteristics, but about analytical perspective. But apart from Bhakti, Sufi, syncretism, and impact, significance, etc., there are also lots of questions again on language and literature in medieval time. We have almost 6 questions. The latest one being in 2022. Now, have you been taught specially the language literature of regional kingdoms in medieval era? No wonder sometimes we find the exam difficult because we are not actually following the trend of UPSC. Look at the PYQs and prepare. Now, let me go to some other aspects. Mughal Empire. Yahan pe bhi I want to bring out an interesting thing. And that is, if you look at the Mughal economy, you get to a very interesting thing. We are all enamored by Irfan Habib Saab's studying in Mughal agrarian system, the Oxford book that he published, researched and published in 1960s. तब से लेके लगभग 1990s 2000 तक, our focus of study was on the landed empire, was on the revenue system and agricultural roots of Mughal Empire. कैसे वो surplus appropriate करते थे, कैसे bureaucracy बनाई for agricultural revenue. And वो हम पढ़ते लाजमी भी है. But look at the questions. There are only 4 questions on the agrarian aspect of Mughal Empire. If you look at the trade and commerce, especially the European trade, if there is a term that is given in syllabus called trade revolution. वो पूरा डिबेट है जेम्स वैन लोर से लेके नील स्टीनगार्ड एंड ओम प्रकाश तक, बहुत बड़ा डिबेट है. इट इज गिवन इन मेनी बुक्स. UPSC is equally interested in that aspect. European trade during Mughal era and the connections and impact and all those things. So, are you prepared for this? जितना हम मुगल एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन पढ़ते हैं for agrarian taxation, उतना ही important trade revolution topic. If you look at the PYQs. Similarly, there are some emerging trends. For example, you see science and tech in Mughal Empire. This is another important topic not to be brushed aside. It has been asked at least 4 or 5 times in last so many years. The latest being 2013. Why was the development of India stalled during Mughal Empire and why India lagged behind Europe in 16, 17, 18th century? इसका पूरा context है the development of science and tech in Mughal Empire, Mughal era, और उसके ऊपर 4-5 बार सवाल पूछ चुके हैं. Are you prepared to handle that? Needham thesis का application in case of India. आपने सुना होगा कभी जोसेफ नीडहैम. He is a historian who has studied why China could not create capitalist revolution while Europe did. And a lot of historians have tried to apply that to India also. So the overall context of what was the Indian response to European technology, assess the development of science and technology in Mughal period, उसका जो larger context है वो वही है कि यूरोप आगे चला गया, अब तक इंडिया आगे था, वो पीछे क्यों पड़ गया साइंस एंड टेक में. तो you should be able to answer these questions to get good marks. Now there is the biggest surprise of medieval India, and even I was shocked when I arranged all these questions properly, I must say, and that is the history of the Marathas. Generally, in our classrooms, we give half a lecture on one lecture to Marathas. But if you look at the history of Marathas, just see the number of questions UPSC has asked over the years. You can divide them in two parts, 17th century and 18th century. In the 17th century, focus is primarily on Shivaji and also Aurangzeb's Deccan adventure, which failed miserably. In the 18th century, the focus is on Peshwas and their wars and the expansion and limitation and everything. So look at the 17th century questions. We have one question on the sources that was asked very recently in 2022, Shiva Bharat and Sabhasad Bakhar. Then we have factors behind the rise of Marathas, a typical debate, not asked since last 10 years. Ab shayad pooch le. Then we have specifically questions only on contribution of Chhatrapati Shivaji personally. So these questions are on overall Marathas, but these questions are on specific to Shivaji's actions. These are so many questions from 17th century. Now come to the 18th century. You have one question on Bajirao the First, very old question. Then you have the Maratha ascendancy and its limitations of when they created almost pan-Indian empire, pan-Indian empire. We have Third Battle of Panipat. We have the details of Peshwa administration vis-a-vis Mughals and otherwise, and then the typical issue of Chauth and Sir Deshmukh. तो आप इतने सारे क्वेश्चंस काउंट करोगे तो आइडियली इन योर ऑप्शनल फाउंडेशन आपको कम से कम तीन लेक्चर मराठा पढ़ाना पड़ेगा फॉर एनी टीचर इफ all these things are to be taught to you properly. And in last one decade, you see the Maratha questions are becoming more frequent. As a teacher, हम ये भी follow करते हैं in which state PCS क्या हो रहा है. अभी मैंने देखा in Telangana PCS, in Haryana PCS, in UP PCS, in Bihar PCS, and Jammu Kashmir PCS. If you of 5 of this, Maharashtra तो छोड़ ही दो. Of these 5 PCS, if you pick up the mains paper of last 2-3 years each, जो 15-20 पेपर होंगे उसमें से आपको कम से कम 7 से 8 सवाल मिल जाएंगे स्पेसिफिकली ऑन मराठा हिस्ट्री. तो इवन इन रीजनल डोमेन्स मराठा हिस्ट्री का इंपॉर्टेंस अब बढ़ते जा रहा है. एंड यूपीएससी में तो ऑलरेडी है, बट वी वर नॉट कॉग्निजेंट बिकॉज कैटेगराइजेशन ऑफ क्वेश्चंस इज नॉट प्रॉपर. कलेक्शन of PYQs is not our requirement fully. It is not solving our problems fully. हमें चाहिए categorization which is intuitive and helps in our preparation. Let us go to world history also. In world history, you will see, or rather before that, we have modern India. In modern India, also you will see there are lots of interesting things. जैसे कि आपको बता देता हूँ, पहले तो go to the 19th century. I am just bringing out some examples here. If you observe the document very closely, you will yourself find out many more such interesting things. But let me go to the 19th century socio-religious reform movements. Here you will see that the questions are very interesting. And the choice of words of UPSC is also very revealing. हाँ, बहुत ज्यादा क्वेश्चन है यहाँ तो. रेलवे, फेमाइन, फ्री ट्रेड, कॉलोनियल इकोनॉमी, ट्रेन ऑफ वेल्थ, रेसिज्म, पीजेंट ट्राइबल. इसकी बात पहले कर लेते हैं. इफ यू सी द क्वेश्चंस, समटाइम्स यूपीएससी यूजेस द वर्ड peasant and tribal uprisings in the case of peasant movements and tribal uprisings. So here we have to talk about collective peasant and tribal and not specify कि tribal का कुछ अलग है. But there are certain questions that UPSC chooses not to use the word peasant and focuses only on tribals. So यहाँ पे the answer should be focusing specific aspects of tribal frustration, tribal exploitation rather than of peasants in general. क्या आप वो डिफरेंशिएट करते हो आपके आंसर में? Look at the point I wanted to make about the socio-religious reform movements. Here also you will see the same thing. You have lots of questions on the content and consequences of socio-religious reform but some of them focus only on religious reform and the others focus on socio-religious reform. So there is a whole debate about Neo-Vedanta and Neo-Hinduism. And UPSC expects you to answer that debate if it asks only religious reform. But if it asks socio-religious reform, तो आपका पूरा वुमेन वाला, कास्ट वाला, जो भी सारे एंगल आपके हैं, अनटचेबिलिटी हो, वो सारे वहां पे आएंगे. Were you prepared for this kind of surprise that UPSC is asking you the debate on Neo-Vedanta and Neo-Hinduism? We cover that in our classes, but not in such detail. Right? So be prepared for that. We bring you some more interesting aspects. Now, this is another point. If you come to the 20th century, in the 20th century, once the Congress phase begins, we have extremists and moderates, and then we come to Swadeshi movement. Here, interestingly, look at the amount of questions that are asked on Curzon's policy and compare that with the questions that are asked on Swadeshi movement together, collectively. तो Curzon policy के ऊपर सवाल आए हैं, 1, 2, 3, 4 बार आए. And look at Swadeshi, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 and 6 questions. तो 4 सवाल Curzon के, 6 सवाल Swadeshi के. So do you have enough data prepared for consequences of Curzon's policy? In prelims, we focus on 3-4 acts, the Calcutta Corporation Municipal Act हो, या एजुकेशन रिफॉर्म हो, एजुकेशन बिल यूनिवर्सिटी कंट्रोल के लिए, या फिर पंजाब का लैंड रिफॉर्म वाला एक्ट हो, या स्प्लिट ऑफ द पार्टीशन ऑफ बंगाल. We study that, no doubt. But there are trends that UPSC wants you to understand Curzon as the administrator, his intent and his consequences. उसके ऊपर 4 बार सवाल पूछा, स्वदेशी 6 बार, Curzon 4 बार. Be prepared for such kind of questions. I remember that in some books, actually, there is a comparison between Curzon and Nehru. Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru's approach and attitude after 1947 and Curzon in 1900s. दोनों में क्या similarity है and dissimilarities. So such kind of ideas become apparent very easily if you look at the PYQs. Now let me bring you one more interesting thing. Look at questions that are asked on Mahatma Gandhi. Did you know that in our syllabus, we have to specifically focus on Gandhian methods of ahimsa, satya, satyagraha in the context of the pros and cons of his style of mass mobilization? If you look at the questions, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 बार, latest being 2020, UPSC is asking you specific questions to analyze the method of Gandhian mass mobilization, its strength, its limitations, its weaknesses. Now, this can be studied from variety of perspectives. Bhikkhu Parekh Saab hai, and there are many other people who study from Gandhian perspective. On the other hand, we have subaltern historians like Shahid Amin who study from a very critical perspective. Popular Gandhi kya tha? Popular Mahatma. So, we सवाल UPSC ने तो subaltern Gandhi you have to understand properly to be able to answer so many questions. So, ये theme अपने आप में है, and it has to be studied. Let me bring you one more surprise. If you look at NCM, CDM, and QIM, we study a lot of regional pattern. NCM का regional pattern, CDM का regional pattern, QIM का regional pattern, but UPSC is not asking those questions except 1 or 2 very rare exceptions. UPSC is very clear about its own interests. In case of NCM, आपको चाहिए causes, Khilafat connection, the Mopla rebellion, and sudden withdrawal. That's all. 4 things. If you go to CDM, again you have similar issues, similar trends that you see in case of CDM. कहाँ गया CDM? अच्छा, it is on the next page. You have causes, the business pressure, Karachi के साथ connection, and 1935 Act के साथ connection. बस. If you go to QIM, again you have Cripps mission, Gandhiji and violence and spontaneous revolution. एक और theme आती है, चौथी theme, which is not covered by UPSC so far. Future में पूछ सकते हैं, but 3 questions they have asked. So there are clear historiographical themes and debates with respect to NCM, CDM, QIM that UPSC is interested. हर एक में 4 issues है, सर्वकम 12 debates. So in your notes, you should have viewpoints of some historians on this side, on that side, and what is the stance you want to take on these 12 questions. इन 12 में से एक सवाल तो हर साल आता है, केवल 2 आते हैं, 100 आता ही आता है. The only 12 debates. इनके नोट्स 12 पन्ने में बन सकते हैं, एक सवाल गारंटी आएगा. So this is the idea that you get to know when you start observing the trends in PYQs. Let me do the same thing for world history also very quickly. Certain important trends that are easily apparent to us. So I have a separate section here on India since independence also, post-independence के लिए. You can go through it. Certain themes are already asked and certain themes are yet to be asked. Come to the world history. World history, as I said in the very beginning, UPSC is heavily interested in the history of ideas, intellectual history. May it be the Enlightenment history, may it be socialism and Marxism, may it be the causes of French Revolution, causes of American Revolution and their connection to the ideology. आपके पेपर में हर साल 2 से 3 सवाल आते हैं which focus on ideology only, not only in case of Enlightenment and leftist ideas or in American and French Revolution, but also 1848, nationalism, liberalism, even in the case of British democratic politics. You will see that. Let me get there for you to understand. This is socialism and Marxism. Yes, look at these questions on British democratic politics. Up to they have asked you 5 questions on British liberalism, but only 3 questions on Chartist movement and only 4 questions, or only 3 on 1832 and 4 on Chartist movement. So if I ask you the relative weightage of Chartist movement, 32, and liberalism, I am damn sure that in your notes, you have 2-3 pages on Act of 1832, you have 2-3 pages on Chartist movement, but you do not have 3-4 pages on British liberalism, its characteristics, its limitations, its critical analysis. उसके बिना ये सवाल आप लिख नहीं पाओगे. The latest question was asked in 2023. So we need to be sure that the notes we have are adequate to solve the themes that are recurrent in UPSC. Let me tell you one more aspect. While I was preparing the document, I also came to know that although the history is largely Eurocentric, even today, still you will see in case of colonization and decolonization, the history of the world, not world history per se in Eurocentric manner, but of different regions, Latin America, Asia, and Africa, there is a widespread coverage. Look at the countries which are covered. You have overall characteristics of neo-imperialism, but then you have African continent as such collectively with focus on South Africa twice. In last year's papers only, the British imperialism in South Africa from 1867 to 1902 was influenced to a large extent by capitalist mining of diamonds. And उसके जो पहले सवाल पूछा है, trace the growth of British imperialism in South Africa from 1800 to 1907. The second question is nothing but one phase for the longer duration question of the first question. उसी question को उन्हें तोड़ के आधा part दोबारा पूछ लिया. So focus on African colonization and focus on South Africa's colonization separately. Then you come to Asia collectively and within Asia. Indonesia के ऊपर सवाल पूछ के 5-7 साल हो गए हैं. You have the American Empire in its feature, Malaysia, and then Japan का response to the entire change that was happening in 19th century. Similarly, one more thing is there, and that is inter-warriors. In the inter-warriors, if you see properly, we start from World War I, we go to World War II, and we focus on League of Nations, fascism, etc. But you know, UPSC is interested not only in the political developments and international relationships starting from Paris Peace Conference till World War II, वो तो है ही है. Additionally, apart from that, UPSC also is asking questions on the socio-economic aspects of interwar year, a topic which is not clearly mentioned in our syllabus. So we have lots of questions on Paris Peace and Russian Revolution, etc. in the interwar years. But apart from that, we have questions on overall economy, Great Depression, and also society. A special focus is on a word that is disillusionment. We have roaring 20s, the term that is used in case of Europe as well as America. कि पोस्ट वर्ल्ड वॉर के बाद रोरिंग 20s आती है, उसके बाद आता है ग्रेट डिप्रेशन, राइट? एंड द वर्ड इज डिल्यूजन, डिसइल्यूजन रादर. This term is associated with society psychology. You know who is the one who represents the term, whose ideas? Sigmund Freud. Sigmund Freud का रेफरेंस लिए बिना आप इस सवाल का आंसर दे ही नहीं सकते. So UPSC is interested in socio-cultural economic aspects of interwar also, although political and IR themes are obviously important. उसके बारे में तो डाउट ही नहीं है. Then I want to ask couple of things. I want to show couple of more things. एक है Cold War. The moment you come to Cold War, you know, in our classes we study it for long time, for 2-3 lectures minimum, different facets. But hold your horses. Look at the questions on Cold War. If you focus on main European theater, there are very few questions. 10-12 सवाल है maximum in last so many years. Phases के ऊपर तो 2 ही बार पूछा है. But what happened at the end and after the Cold War gets much more important. So you have lots of questions on the causes of disintegration of USSR and especially separately role of Gorbachev. Then you have emergence of unipolar world. These topics overlap a lot with PSI or optional. And then you have unification of Europe after the Cold War and what happened in the East Europe and then UNO, etc. So itne sare questions hai that you have lots of details to cover during and after 1990s, much more than what happened in 1950s, 60s, 70s and 80s. ये एक नया पैटर्न आपने सोचा, मैंने भी नहीं सोचा था इतने साल. And then I want to bring you the last aspect, and that is again in the post-World War scenario, what is happening outside Europe, especially in the third world countries, the history of decolonization. Here also, again, you have lots of regions and lots of countries. Look at Chinese Revolution. In that also, if you see very closely, you have some questions on overall causes, but there are specific questions on the role of Mao Zedong or Mao Zedong in Chinese Revolution. Then what was his strategy? Same thing you will notice in earlier section में, the strategy of Lenin and Stalin. So आपके पास Lenin, Stalin, Mao Zedong, Ho Chi Minh, Lincoln, Washington, ये thinkers as a thinkers भी आपको पूछे. Not only Bismarck, Cavour and Napoleon. You have to cover these people's ideologies also. Then you have to come to decolonization and emergence of third world overall questions. Then Arab nationalism. After Arab nationalism, we have questions on Egypt specifically, Turkey and Israel-Palestine. There was emergence of 3 different nationalisms in Middle East at the same time. The Turkish nationalism, Turkification, etc. You have Arab nationalism, and then we have Zionism for Jewish people. And these 3 nationalisms are not only emerging at the same time, they are clashing with each other. और बाकी यूरोप मजे ले रहा है देखा जाए तो. The point is you have to analyze things properly in perspective. Come to Africa, we have Algeria, South Africa, apartheid to democracy. Within Asia, we have overall questions on the rise of nationalism in Asia, latest being 2023. And then specifically Vietnam, Indonesia, Malaysia, same 3 countries जिसको हमने पहले पढ़ा था for colonization, now we are reading for decolonization. There are a couple of questions, as I said, on South Africa for colonization and 4-5 questions on decolonization, that is apartheid. यहाँ पे है. But one topic which UPSC has mentioned but not asked even once, that is Australia. शायद कभी पूछ ले ऑस्ट्रेलिया, कनाडा एंड दी वेस्टमिंस्टर एटसेट्रा सिस्टम कैसे बनी, वहां पे ग्लोबल लेवल पे उनके ट्रीटीज हुए थे, एंड द इमर्जेंस ऑफ ऑस्ट्रेलियन नेशन, व्हाइट रेसिज्म, बहुत फेडरलिज्म, कई सारी चीज वहां पे है, एंड हाउ इट कनेक्ट्स विद द डीकोलोनाइजेशन ओवरऑल. वी हैव नॉन अलाइनमेंट एंड देन वी हैव पोस्ट कॉलोनियल हिस्ट्री. तो आपके पास इतने सारे टॉपिक्स हैं that we might not have noticed easily. Only the better categorization makes it possible to see the trends and prepare your classes. So this handout will, I am sure, be immensely helpful for you to connect PYQ trends with your classroom understanding, with your notes and revision and actual examination. You can download the handout from the link given below, or you can give us a call. We'll send you a PDF copy. If you want a hard copy, visit our institute. Thank you.